Hey everybody, Steve DiCasa here with today's live stream nugget. So this little series that I do on DiCasaFilm is where I take a little nugget of knowledge from my live stream that I do every Monday and Wednesday at 6 o'clock right here live. I polish up that nugget and I show it to you. Maybe you could learn a little something. Hey, if you watch the whole live stream, there's a lot more nuggets. They aren't as polished, they aren't as shiny, but they're there for you to discover. A lot of knowledge in those live streams. This one, I actually really like. It's actually going to be a little bit long because I was pretty verbose in explaining it. Someone in the chat named KJ Teng heard me say, I think I'm going to render this footage right here, and was like, what's render? It's a great question. KJ is learning editing. She's editing videos of her mom cooking, which is awesome. Good luck with those videos, KJ. So when she asked what's rendering, I did say, well, you know, there is rendering and cooking too. I feel like there's similar definition, which you'll see in the nugget. But she actually kind of had me stumped, which was awesome. I had to really sit and think about an easy way to explain what rendering footage is. And there isn't really an easy one. So at the beginning of this nugget, I'm kind of just like stumbling through an answer. Then I thought of an analogy about Legos, which is kind of weird, but it might work. Then we brought out Siri and asked Siri what the definition of render is. And then finally, at the end of the nugget, I finally kind of put it all together and gave you kind of a little bit more technically like what's happening when you render. In the live stream, it was about 25 minutes from start to end, but I chopped that up, polished it, and here's that nugget for you right now. So render, KJ, hey, you know, there's rendering in cooking too. Did you know that? Ask your mom what to render means. What is rendering in editing? So I'm editing this footage. The footage itself, when I shot it in the camera, is a certain format. I'm gonna use like kind of basic language. The footage that I'm editing is footage right out of the camera, and it is at a very high quality, very high resolution. I have my timeline set, this stuff down here, all this editing. This timeline is set to a smaller resolution. Because it's a big file, it takes a lot for the computer to play it. It struggles. Also struggling more because it's taking this footage, this 4K footage, and it's squishing it down to fit in this timeline. So when I hit play, the computer has to remember that. Okay, so this is the setting. So as I hit play, the computer is having to basically create new frames on the fly. Create this, because that clip doesn't really exist. It's just doing the animation on the fly. But it's very processor heavy. So in order for me to even watch it, I have to lower the quality down. So when I hit play, the quality goes down just so I can see it play smoothly. So when I render it, I take a few moments for the computer to literally create a new file. And then when it renders that video, now there's a new video file somewhere on the hard drive, and it puts that into the timeline. And so when it's playing that video, it's just playing a video that is the right size and the right quality in a easier to play format. Whereas before, in order to just hit play, it takes a lot of processing power to make that happen. So I don't know if that explains it, but like basically what it means is when I render the footage, it is making a whole new clip that's different from the footage that's in the timeline. It's its own new file, and it lives somewhere on my hard drive, somewhere in all the rendered footage folder. And it puts that into the timeline so that when I hit play, I can see it in a higher quality because it's now a lower resolution. Don't know if that makes sense, but I hope it does. I'm trying to think of an analogy. What would an analogy be? It's tough. The closest thing I can think of is like, I'm trying to think of like Legos, you know? Imagine you're building Legos, right? And you're building, let's say it's a bridge out of Legos. When you're working with the footage not rendered, it's like your bridge is made out of 1,000 Legos. And so like, what if instead of having a Lego bridge, you actually just had a plastic bridge that was one Lego piece? It was just one piece of Lego. It's like one thing. It's like you could like melt it all into like one piece of plastic, you know? So that would be like rendering the Lego bridge from like a couple hundred pieces and just melting it all together into one bridge that's one piece of plastic. Once you do that, you can't you can't take it apart again. It's now one piece. You can't take the Lego pieces back off of it. It's rendered. It's there. It's its own thing. It's its own piece. If you wanted to make a change, if you wanted to swap out a few bricks, you would have to go back to your bridge made of all the Legos, swap out a few of those bricks, and then you could render that all into one big solid plastic piece. Let's ask Siri. Siri, what does render mean?
As a verb, it means provide or give a service, help, etc.
Render. 1. To provide or give, like a service or help. 2. Cause to be or become, make. Render. Cause to be, make. 3. Represent or depict artistically. Covertly send, melt down fat. Yeah, that's the cooking one. In order to extract proteins. But basically, in this particular sense, it means number 2. Cause to be or become, to make. Which I think is a good term because the computer is creating a new video file from the parameters that we want. This is zoomed in. It's a little bit this way. And instead of having to play back a video file thinking, okay, play back this video file, but zoom in on it and move it this way for every frame, that's more processing that the computer has to do to play that back, keeping in mind for every frame it needs to be zoomed in this way. Whereas if I just render it, now it doesn't have to think zoom in this way. It already is zoomed in this way because it's creating each one of those frames. It just like the still frame, next frame, next frame. It took every one of those frames at that parameter and exported each one of those frames into a new file and made its own little video that now it doesn't have to think about zoom in and do it because it just did it and then spit out a video where that's the case. Don't know if that makes sense. KJ, I don't even know if you're still here. Well, if you're still watching, I'm glad you're still here. Hopefully that was helpful for you. Sorry it was a little bit rambly. Sorry it took a little while to get it out. You also may have noticed when you were watching that nugget that someone super chatted me €1. A super chat is a monetary tip to say thank you for what I'm doing. So you might be chastising me, Steve. Why didn't you thank him for that super chat? I did thank him. I thanked him profusely. I just cut it out of this nugget because it would have taken up a lot of time. So thank you so much for that tip, Emotion VFX. But that's what rendering is. I hope if you never heard what rendering footage is, now you have a little bit more of an understanding. And that's what this live stream is about. In my live streams, I teach editing, cinematography, photography, all that good stuff. And I do it Mondays and Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time right here on this channel. I also simultaneously cast it live to our Twitch page over at twitch.tv/rethinkfilms. And if you missed the full live stream, go to that link over there. youtube.com/rethinkfilms, which is my production company. Over there is where I post the entire full live stream replay. So you can go there, watch the whole thing, and find even more nuggets. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to DiCasaFilm so you can be notified when I go live and when I post videos like this nugget. If you're over on Twitch, give us a follow on Twitch. That would be awesome too. And if you want to go even further, consider becoming a member. If you look right down below, if you're watching this on YouTube, next to the subscribe button, you'll see a join button. Click it, and you're going to see tiers, different perks. You get custom emoji for the chat. You get badges next to your name, and you get some cool stuff. So go down there, check it out, consider it. But if not, that's okay. A subscription and a follow would be great if you can. So I hope to see you in those live streams. But until then, happy filmmaking. Peace.